Luckily for us, before returning to Hangar 84 with pieces of the crashed disc, Jesse Marcel stopped at home to show his wife and his son, Jesse Marcel Jr.
That July night in Roswell, one I'll never forget because of the uniqueness of it, marked a dividing point in my life before the event and after the event. I was sound asleep. It was, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And my dad came into the bedroom and he woke me up and says, "Come here, Jesse, I got something I want you to see." He was very excited, and my dad wasn't given to excitement, so this is kind of unusual for him. So I knew that, well, whatever it was must be pretty important. He went over, got my mother, and got her up. And he had pre-positioned some debris on the floor of the kitchen. Then he said, "This is flying saucer material." Then there were some, looked like I-beam fragments. And on the inner surface there was, I thought, hieroglyphic writing. I said, "What is this?"
Marcel and his father had this piece of the debris recreated from memory so that they could show the world what they saw that night.
On the inner surface of this little beam, you have the symbols. And the one that I recall as being most accurate is one on the end, because I could tie it in with familiar objects such as a seal balancing a ball on its nose. The meaning of these symbols escapes my feeble mind there. Maybe it says, "Do not flush in zero gravity," or something like that. And we looked at this for 10 or 15 minutes, and he's telling you, "Remember this as something that you will remember the rest of your life." And by golly, here we are almost 60 years later, it's still there.
Like his father, Jesse Jr. joined the military. He's been serving as a flight surgeon for 40 years. With only 2 weeks leave this year, he has chosen to come to Roswell and retrace his father's steps. It was here, to Hangar 84, that his father brought the debris. And the way Jesse tells it, that debris was quickly switched by the military to throw reporters off the scent.
I have seen photographs of my father kneeling with some debris in General Rainey's office floor. General DuBose is there too. And looking at the material on the floor of his office, I thought, "Hey, wait, that's not what we saw in Roswell on our kitchen floor." My dad did say that there might have been some original debris in there, but he said for the most part they switched it.
There's no doubt in your mind, I gather, that the balloon story was a cover story.
Absolutely none. We knew that it was a cover story, but we used that in order to assuage the curiosity of the press.
Let's assume for a moment that a UFO did crash in Roswell. Why would the government want to cover it up? It's 2 years after World War II. Global tensions are high and the Cold War is heating up. It might not have been the best time to admit you don't have control over your own skies.
It would have been very surprising if they hadn't covered up. What are you going to say? Aliens are visiting? We don't know what they want, where they're from, or how they operate? We thought you'd like to know?
Hold on a minute. The question now begging is, why did the government tell us it was a flying disc in the first place? There are two possibilities. One, someone low on the command chain got excited and made a simple mistake. But military protocol dictated that a commander of the 509th had to authorize a press release. So a simple mistake seems unlikely. Two, it was planned disinformation. The theory goes like this. Admit it's a UFO, then offer a more plausible explanation like a weather balloon. Chances are you're a lot more likely to believe it's a weather balloon than an interstellar spaceship. Of course, it's not as easy to do as it sounds.
In the first place, there were people in town who did know something. The second place, putting out a press story that could later be yanked was a wonderful way to do things. People bought the cover-up.
By digging around Roswell, Stan had unearthed a real peach of a story.
So nice to meet you.
Like bees to honey, ufologists from everywhere came swarming to Roswell. And everyone had an opinion. Dave Thomas is a physicist and mathematician. He's also the president of a group called New Mexicans for Science and Reason.
In science, we say that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And if you want somebody to believe something as extraordinary as aliens traveling across the depths of space and actually coming to Earth, you have to have something better than fuzzy pictures. You're going to need real physical evidence. The best of all would be a drop of alien blood. This would be bigger than Charles Darwin. There's no way that you could quench the scientific enthusiasm for that story. But the reason it hasn't happened is we have not been visited by aliens yet. Maybe we will someday, but it hasn't happened yet.
Then how do you explain this? There are those who believe that what came down at Roswell was more than just a disc. Tom Carey and Don Schmidt are seasoned UFO investigators. They have dedicated over 20 years to this story, and they are convinced that they have uncovered the truth.
What crashed at Roswell was not of this Earth. This has been confirmed to us by scores of witnesses who witnessed the craft and its deceased occupants.
Real dead aliens? Now we're talking.
There were up to 5, 6, 7 bodies found at 3 locations, we believe. It wasn't until just a few years ago that we found out that Mac Brazel, who found the original wreckage, also found bodies at a site just a few miles from the debris field.
Then how do they know this? Tom and Don talked to witnesses and their daughters and brothers and grandchildren, all of whom described bizarrely similar things.
I think by the very consistency of the eyewitness testimony, we were dealing with something, as one of the retired officers once stated, well, they sure weren't from Texas.
They were small. They had large heads for their size.
They had very large heads that were shaped larger on the top, and they kind of tapered down.
The heads were very much larger than the body. That was out of proportion for the size of the body they had. The eyes were very deeply set back and set in. The amazing thing about the skulls that they were kind of flexible, that it wasn't, like a hard skull.
And Granddaddy said their heads were large, and the little suit that they had on was just, you couldn't, it was just like